everyone, thanks for coming back to the channel and joining me for another video. So we are doing two videos back to back, which you will get across the next 2 days. This one, Hugs and Drugs, is going to be quickly followed by Cult or Cult of Meghan. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet. You will understand why, and it is closely related, linked to watching bits of this interview with Harry and Dr. Gabor Mate. Now, I didn't pay to view it, much like I didn't pay to buy Harry's book. I've reached a level of annoyance with Harry and Meghan that I do not actually want to put money in their hand. Harry's book was actually sent to me by PDF by a friend, thanks Paula, for free. So I have used that when talking about it in videos. I'm never going to read the whole thing because, well, I might as well read a fantasy fiction book. The little petulant prince of angst, it's just not something that I really need to store in my brain. As you can tell, I've got enough books that I'm trying to work my way through as it is. Now, secondly, I'm going to do my own disclaimer. At the beginning of this video, I will be talking about drug and alcohol abuse. There will be certain things, so if you are triggered by it, I'm letting you know that this may not be the video for you. Now, me talking about my disclaimer here, it's something that really angers me with Harry. He is talking about the promotional use. He's glorifying drug taking as far as I am concerned. Lots of medical professionals have spoken out and they seem to agree with me as well, as do lots of people across social media. Harry and even Dr. Gabor Mate, they never once put a disclaimer saying, we will be talking about the use of drugs recreationally, but please bear in mind drugs are dangerous. Do not take drugs without, speaking to a medical professional. You know what I mean? Don't self-medicate with illegal substances. But there was nothing, and it is completely irresponsible. Harry is being called out by families of people that have lost their lives to taking drugs, drug awareness programs, and I just think it is incredibly dangerous and selfish of Harry to have done this without even a moment's thought of his fan base. Harry and Meghan do have a fan base. They target teenagers and early 20s. We've seen them. They did a podcast to do with teenage mental health. So don't tell me that Harry doesn't target the younger generation. This is why it's very important to also explain there are a lot of dangers with taking drugs. Harry and Dr. Gabor Mate, from what I've read, they do not bring that to anyone's attention, and I find that truly disgraceful, unprofessional. But as it turns out, check out this little chestnut. I can't take credit for this. This was actually Diane Martin on Twitter. She found this on Dr. Mate's website, or a website to do with Dr. Mate. Please note, I am no longer in clinical practice or associated with a health clinic, and as a result, I cannot provide individual care advice or counselling. But he can diagnose ADHD or ADD live on television. I mean, maybe it's something that Harry had agreed to beforehand. Maybe he gave his permission to do this, but I find this completely unprofessional to be doing this on such a public platform. Patient-doctor confidentiality. But as we just read there, Dr. Mate, he is a doctor in name, but he is not under any sort of laws of restrictions because he is no longer a working practitioner. As for Harry, where I say he's glorifying drugs, I mean, he talks about marijuana, how it really did help me. He goes on to talk about cocaine, which is obviously still an illegal A-class drug. It was a social thing and gave me a sense of belonging. It made me feel different, which was kind of the point. Again, this is all positivity, talking about taking A-class drugs. And with Harry, with all of the money and the connections that he has, I'm sure that Harry was quite capable of getting high quality street drugs, not the stuff that teenagers at university and colleges and all sorts of places can get their hands on quite easily from a dodgy drug deal around the corner. Again, this is something Harry does not even once think about himself, because he doesn't seem to think about anyone other than himself these days. One of the other things that really irritated me was Harry's use of the words. I have seen clips, by the way, and I have read the transcript, but Harry talks about the use of psychedelics and how they helped him and how, it's now fundamentally part of his life. Yes, this isn't like a person talking about, oh, I overcame drug abuse when I was younger, I know better now. This is someone saying, yeah, no, it's great, do it. It is truly, as I said, completely irresponsible. Now, another area which I believe is completely irresponsible of both Harry and Dr. Gabor Mate is the fact that they're talking about using psychedelic drugs for the treatment of trauma. Now, obviously, Harry is talking about taking it under some sort of supervision. And when you look up these swanky, it's apparently quite a popular drug now with the middle classes, but they are staying at exclusive resorts. They are staying at places where they will have medical supervision, or they will at least have a crash team on hand if the trip goes bad. And this is another thing, trips can go bad, even under supervision. You know, some people never recover. There are so many people that are speaking out about this. Psychiatrists have spoken out about this interview, saying that they see people on psych wards that have damaged themselves from taking hallucinogenics. There is no coming back from certain things, you know, schizophrenia, all sorts of terrible things that can come from it. A trip can go both ways. Again, this is where I find this interview perplexing and infuriating. And I completely understand why so many anti-drug campaigners are speaking out against this. Jennifer Spencer's family have come forward and just to remind the world that what works from one person can be deadly for another. Jennifer was 29 years old and on holiday in Peru, she suffered psychosis after ingesting the same drug that Harry is talking about how wonderful it is, and she took her own life. Drugs are a case of Russian roulette. Doctors, politicians, bereaved families, medical professionals and anti-drugs campaigners have called out Harry. They are calling him stupid, irresponsible and dangerous. And I don't know how anyone can disagree. Harry stated, "It removed it all for me and brought me a sense of relaxation, release, comfort and lightness that I managed to hold on to for a period of time. I started doing it recreationally and then started to realise how good it was for me. It changed and helped me." How many young people look up to Prince Harry, okay? How many impressionable people look up to him and maybe themselves are being offered drugs at school or college and they think, oh, I'm a little bit too scared to try it. I know they're dangerous. And now you've got Harry on a platform, the Duke of Sussex, the Prince, the fun-loving, cool guy that he's trying to remarket himself as, saying, oh yeah, no, I take psychedelics. It was great. It was calming. It relaxed me. It made me feel good. What about other addicts that have recovered? You know, people that have watched Harry go through addiction think, oh, well, he managed to kick the habit. And now they're watching Harry talk about how he can do drugs casually, recreationally. It's helped him. He loves it. It's great. It's absolutely triggering for some people that have struggled and will always struggle with addiction. Again, it's the irresponsibility of Harry doing this interview on such a public platform. It wouldn't be so bad if Harry was talking about stuff that he did in his past, but he's not. He's talking about something that he still does and he is glorifying it. Now, one thing that people are bringing up going, how can he be in America, his visa status, whatever visa he is on, and promote the use of taking illegal substances in the way that he is? As I said, this isn't Harry talking about the dangers of it. This is Harry talking about the positivities of taking drugs. When you think that Nigella Lawson, the famous chef, the beautiful chef that everyone was in love with, she got barred from entering the USA because she was forced to admit in court that she had taken cocaine. Harry is not just talking about taking cocaine. Okay, marijuana in this instance, it's legal in the one state that he's in. It's not legal across the whole of America. I think it's 2 states. But he is talking about illegal substances in the form of psychedelics. You know, he bragged about being at Courtney Cox's house, about taking mushrooms. That was in 2016. And now he's talking about this trendy drug, which I can't pronounce the name of. But yes, talking about psychedelics to help with mental health. And it's making people question, does Harry's title make him completely exempt, give him immunity from absolutely everything? Could Harry potentially come over for the coronation and find himself in Nigella Lawson's shoes? Well, that's an interesting image. But could he find himself not being allowed entry back into the United States? Meghan must know all of this, and it makes you think again, this is part of Meghan's plan. Get Harry barred from America. She can live it up then, can't she? Now, as for Dr. Mate, he reportedly said, I don't care about the royal melodrama in the book. I already saw The Crown. So as he made his diagnosis on Harry from watching Netflix documentary and The Crown, it reminds me of the Johnny Depp court case. Do you remember where they had that psychiatrist come on for Amber Heard's team? And he said that he's never had a meeting with Johnny Depp. He's never met him in person, but he's watched Johnny Depp's films. And that's how he's given his diagnosis on Johnny Depp. Yeah. Now, I'm sure Harry was overjoyed at getting all of these different disorders being thrown at him, saying, oh, Harry, you have this, you have this, you have this, because it gives Harry another reason to blame everyone else and to excuse his bad behaviour. But where it actually turns really sinister is when Harry says to Dr. Gabor about his childhood. We're coming off of drugs now, let's get on to the hugs. But he says to Dr. Gabor that his childhood was incredible in some ways. Dr. Mate quickly corrected him and said, no, it wasn't. It was a story of deprivation, born into a marriage where there was a lack of love, born to a father who himself had been bullied mercilessly, born into a family where people are not held. And what are their kids? Animals? Harry nods along like a little puppy dog, absolutely susceptible to any suggestions that are coming his way. I'd like to point out, I brought this up on Twitter, look at his pupils. Do you think that Harry might be doing a little bit of self-medicating a bit more regularly, or maybe it is prescription drugs, who knows? But Harry has got bright blue eyes. He is in a well-lit room, a bright lit room like me, but Harry, you can see that his forehead actually has the light reflecting off it. That's how bright the light is. And yet his pupils are like saucers. Is this why Harry was just so easily going along with everything that Dr. Gabor said without any questioning, without going, oh, hang on a minute, that's not actually true? He just nodded along like one of those little toys you can put in your car. Let's get off the drugs and let's talk about the lack of hugs. Harry's trauma not only comes from losing his mother at a young age, which fair enough, you know, that is fair enough, but now it's because Charles never gave him hugs. Harry's trauma comes from being born into a cold, loveless family who do not comfort each other or give each other hugs. Harry's trauma comes from the lack of hugs from his nasty father. Much like Harry never went on bike rides, I'm guessing. How many photographs and video footage have we seen over the years? The royal family are huggers. They are huggers. Harry further tries on the guilt trip to the listeners at this point to talk about how cold his father was by using the military. Obviously, he's talking about himself here, but he says, when you come back from Afghanistan after your stint in the military, you're greeted by your father and your brother maybe hugs you. You're not sure. You can't quite remember. Your dad just touches your shoulder. It leaves me in the position of a father having two children, trying to smother them with love. So Harry, notice how he did that. We see all the wonderful, the heartwarming videos across social media where you have military veterans and people coming back from service, and then they get the dogs, their families, you know, the wives that haven't seen their husbands and vice versa. And it's absolutely beautiful. So Harry is trying to appeal to those people that Charles just saw him after he came back from fighting for his country in Afghanistan and Charles tapped him on the shoulder. We have got far too much footage, far too many photographs of when the camera is not on them, when basically some people have said, oh, well, Charles will pretend to be a good father when the camera's rolling. There is too much stuff on the internet to show you, look at these photographs. Charles absolutely adored both of his sons. Harry is completely rewriting his childhood, much like Meghan has done. She has taught him well. I'm not saying that Charles was the perfect father, but let's not pretend that Diana was the perfect mother. Parents make mistakes. It is a learning curve from childhood all the way to adulthood. Some parents undo the wrongs that they feel hurt them and scorn them as a child, you know, something that they remember that their mum or their dad, someone said to them, so they make sure they don't do that. But then they also make mistakes with their own children and start off another, it's not necessarily a cycle, but it's just, how can anyone know how to be a parent without parenting? No one on this earth is perfect. Harry never takes any responsibility for the fact that maybe he was hard work. Maybe he was causing problems when he was a teenager. How's that song go? I'm just a teenage dirtbag. I mean, I know my mum will watch this video and she'll ring me later and she'll be like, oh yeah, you were. I was a jerk. I went through phases. But I look back now and at least I can see that. I know there were certain things where I was a total jerk. And I've even apologised to my mum, because when you become an adult, you can look back and you can understand experiences and go, yeah, no, actually, that was me playing up then, because you get how the world works. Harry doesn't get how the world works because he doesn't live a normal life like the rest of us. As for Harry saying that he's talking about his drugs and his trauma because it's a service to the world, Harry lives a 1% life. So, you know, he thinks that people are going to be able to relate to it. And it's like, he hasn't even grown up. For a man that's nearly 40, there's a father of 2 children, that is married, has packed up countries, that's seen the amount of things and had the experiences that Harry has done, and he's still not grown up. How can he think that anyone is going to be able to relate to him apart from potentially other trust fund kids that have lived a life in a bubble? And Harry did compare himself to the boy in the bubble. This is truly one of the most shocking things that I read, because it's so disrespectful to, you know, to the memory of this little boy. I'm talking about the story of David Vetter, a little boy who was allergic to the world and had to live in a plastic bubble with no human contact until he died at the age of 12. How can Harry compare himself to the tragedy, that awful life that little boy must have experienced in his short 12 years on this earth? Harry was loved by both his parents. He was loved by his grandparents. His great-grandmother absolutely adored him, the Queen Mother. His aunties, his uncles, he had nannies, he had palace staff. Everyone loved and looked after Harry. Harry had more of a family, a larger family. As I said, you got to include staff members, people that were in their homes all the time that looked after Harry. And Harry is trying to sell the story that he was a boy in a bubble, unloved. He came from a broken home. He truly, truly has lost grip on reality. Harry said that he is not a victim and he is not seeking sympathy. Well, if that's the case, then he needs to stop blaming everyone for everything in his life. He needs to take responsibility and accountability for his own actions. The definition of a perpetual victim. Victimization becomes a central part of the individual's identity. They believe that one's life is entirely under the control of forces outside of oneself. A person who is constantly facing some sort of hardship or traumatic experience, whether it is true, self-inflicted, or completely false. I think Harry and Meghan both fall under that category. It describes both of them perfectly well. Harry's doing this all as an act of service, and just the only thing that Harry and Meghan do when service is concerned is self-service. Harry, by saying this, it also seems clear that he has that Messiah complex, that God complex. He believes that he is now here, saintly like Meghan, to save everyone. Harry talks about everyone should have therapy. Everyone should see the world through his eyes. And I'm sorry, I don't want to see the world through Harry's eyes because I believe it is distorted reality. As for Harry's multiple diagnosis that he received off of Dr. Gabor Mate, depression, anxiety, ADD or ADHD, PTSD, personally, as many people have said, it's more ASD, which is attention-seeking disorder. Harry says he wants to help the world, but who's going to help Harry? Harry says he wants to help his children grow up, and the question I'm going to put out into the universe is, who is going to help Harry finally grow up? So that's the end of this video, guys. Join me for my second one called Cult, and I will see you very soon. Take care for now. Bye.